We had a great chat with Renee Cowell at the Chatham-Kent Police Service and talking about safety in our homes and safety just in general. But there's one other safe place that, it could be safe, it could be unsafe, depending on where you are, is traffic safety. And we all know in Chatham-Kent, there are some interesting drivers, new drivers, just all over the place. And we kind of forget about driving once we get our license. So I thought this would be a great time to bring up our traffic management group. And I got somebody who you all know well, who does the polar plunges and all that. We got Constable Jason Herder from the Traffic Management Unit. Jason, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Eric.
So I got to ask you, man, how have you been doing during these interesting times in our community, province, and the whole world for that matter?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. It's certainly been interesting, and I think that's a good way of putting it. Is interesting times. I think for me individually and us as a group, police service and as a whole, being able to adapt to frequent changes has helped us in kind of the perseverance of getting through these challenging times.
No, absolutely. And I think people are just saying, okay, we're in a pandemic. This is a great time to, get a driver's license, especially all the youngins. I know the driver center has been backed up. And then once people get their licenses left, right, center, some of these rules just kind of go out the window, especially again with the new drivers.
Yeah.
Aside from speeding, which is obviously the most common thing, what are the most other common driving mistakes we're seeing in a day-to-day basis?
And this isn't particularly just around our new drivers. We find that there's four, we call them the big four when it comes to errors with driving. And those big four is aggressive driving, speeding being one of them. Other common mistakes include cell phone use, failure to wear their seatbelt. You take the three of those Highway Traffic Act offenses and you add that in with the component of impaired driving, and those make up the big four when it comes to our road safety initiatives that we frequently target. Seatbelts $325 and I believe it's three. It might be four demerit points. I'd have to double check back on that one, but it's a decent fine. So definitely click it and avoid the ticket. Right.
Same with texting. I think maybe that's where I was getting it mixed up with the $800 fine for texting.
Texting is the largest fine that we have in the HTA. So it's a drive motor vehicle with a handheld communication device, and that's a $615 ticket. Your first offense, it's 3 demerit points, and upon conviction is a 3-day license suspension. So it's definitely the harshest penalty in the Highway Traffic Act, and rightfully so. It that inattentive, distracted driving can be the cause of some really terrible collisions.
Yeah, and especially in these during times where every dollar counts right now, paying bills and whatnot. The last thing you want to do is get a ticket of that magnitude, and
absolutely.
Definitely your insurance. But which kind of segues to the next question here. Recently an article you guys had just posted about some of the terrible intersections here in Chatham-Kent. Ones being in Chatham, Kyle and Richmond, followed closely by McNaughton and Riom and Walsburg, I think.
Yep.
Grand and Kyle LaCroix. Let's talk about these roads. I've traveled them, day in and day out, but they got some tight lanes. I've seen a lot of close calls where we might have some out of town drivers who are, at the rear of two people going 40 kilometers an hour and they want to go 55. What are your thoughts on some of these roads in Chatham-Kent, why they are the most common areas for accidents?
So when it comes to Richmond and Kyle, and kind of to explain where we get these numbers is our collision reporting center compiles all of our collision statistics throughout the year. And at the end of each quarter, they provide us statistics and where these collisions are happening. So at the end of 2020, Richmond and Kyle was the most frequent area where collisions occurred. And this isn't the first time that it's happened at this intersection. Richmond and Kyle is to take that intersection and talk about that one specifically. It's a major intersection in Chatham where you have two main arteries for travel. Your parties that are coming into Chatham from Windsor, if they catch that green light at Bloomfield Road, this is the first intersection they're coming to. Same for traffic that's going to be leaving Chatham and heading west. So it's a very busy intersection, and there's a lot of different things going on. You've got two right channel turn lanes, right? So if you're turning onto Kyle from Richmond Street, if you're heading westbound, you've got that channel lane. And as well, if you're turning right from Kyle onto Richmond, you've got that right internal channel as well. So there's a lot of different things going on, and there's a lot to really make sure to look out for. Now, with that being said, I looked at each individual collision we had at Richmond and Kyle in 2020, and I also took each individual crash that we had at McNaughton and Realm, just to see what exactly was the crash particulars that occurred in each one of those incidents. And kind of going through it, they're not all just someone, turning left and being struck by a driver that was driving straight through. There was a lot of variables that were involved in all those different collisions. It wasn't just one particular one that stood out more than another. So with that being said, when it comes to my recommendation, is really, as a driver, you need to kind of go back to either your driver's ed training, or if you hadn't had driver's ed, kind of take a page from that training, which is really, you need to be aware of your surroundings, right? When you're approaching any intersection, and not just these big ones that we're finding our most frequent collisions are occurring. At any intersection, just be aware of your surroundings as you're coming to it. If you're turning left or you're turning right in it, you need to make sure that the ability to make that turn can be done safely. There's no oncoming traffic coming. There's no one walking through the crosswalk, etc. Right? So that's kind of my safety tip for that is, don't be afraid to scan through the intersection. Like if you're proceeding straight through on your green, you've got a fresh green light, you make sure that there's nobody coming from, that may have run a red light. Or if you're turning left, and you need to make sure that there's no one coming through that had the right of way, and that there's no one walking through the crosswalk, right? So that just comes back to that being aware of your surroundings and that situational awareness when you're approaching really any intersection to have that.
Yeah. Are there any other tips that we can be good defensive drivers, not being those aggressive ones where, you're like, okay, let's move up, because obviously everyone needs to be in the same pace of driving to be safe?
No, for sure. So, and you touched base on it as well, Eric. Being an aggressive driver does not make you a defensive driver. And going back to your driver's ed courses and education through driver's education, they don't teach being an aggressive driver. Defensive driving is the exact opposite of that. When you're behind the wheel, you want to make sure, again, that you're completely aware of the surroundings. Always leave yourself a safe distance between you and the car in front of you, because you never know what's going to happen with that car in front of you. They may have to brake suddenly for something. An animal might run across the road, and they brake for, right? You can only control, at the end of the day, the actions in your vehicle. You can't control that of the vehicle surrounding you. So if you leave yourself no escape room with a vehicle in front, you have to brake suddenly for something happens in that car, you've now put yourself in that, kind of a jackpot position where there's nowhere for you to go. So just remember that as a driver, you create and you control your own safe environment while driving. So be aware of your surroundings, leave yourself that space. If you're changing lanes, be sure to check your blind spots. The same thing I kind of touched base about before when it comes into intersections. Clear the intersection before you proceed forward. Make sure it's safe to do so. Kind of know have that 360-degree situational awareness while you're operating your motor vehicle.
Yeah, no, I appreciate all these tips, and I'm hoping, as everyone's in a rush, every time I see a police report of, a damage pegged at $15,000, whether it's a single car or a double car, that kind of revolves and reflects on a lot of our insurance companies. And, obviously the health and well-being of everybody who's in a vehicle, families, single people. So I hope that, some of the tips that we've gotten here from you, Jason, are going into the ears of everyone, and they are a little more safer on the road. So no, I want to thank you for what you and your team are doing out there. I asked Renee, this question, it's been a year since we've been in this crazy pandemic world, and sharing good news stories with all of our emergency services. Any good news stories that from the traffic side of the Chatham-Kent Police Services you'd like to share?
So it's not just enforcement that we do in our office. We also have an education aspect to our office, as well as we work with our city engineers. So to say that we have some good stories that come out of our office, examples can be where we've identified potential traffic-related issues within the municipality. And we've gone out and we've contacted those municipal partners, and we work together to resolve those issues before they something that could have been potentially dangerous or a traffic hazard and things like that. So a lot of our positive stuff that we do in our office is done behind the scenes that you might not really know that we're doing, but just to ensure that roadway safety, our function in the traffic management unit.
Yeah, no, I think I've seen a couple of traffic studies where some of the smaller side streets have stop signs in them and yield signs on them. So, we forget about some of those cul-de-sacs and whatnot that need those places on there. So, like you said, there's a lot of behind the scenes work that we don't really know about that
Right.
you guys and gals do. So we appreciate everything you guys are doing and continuing to do. Jason, is there anything you'd like to add as we wrap up?
We've been touching base on a lot of road safety, so I'll just finish again with that clear message. Coming from us in the traffic office, not just myself, all of my colleagues, and from the police service in general, when it comes to traffic safety. Again, remember that you are the person that's in control of your vehicle. Take that extra couple minutes to make sure that you arrive alive, you arrive safe. Throw your seatbelt on, put that cell phone down. That text message can wait. And drive sober, and that's kind of our big push, right, is that to ensure your own road safety. And that's it from us.
Can't think of a better way to wrap up a road safety segment. So thanks again there, Jason, for keeping our road safe, and hope you're continuing to stay safe as well.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.